We're doing it. Okay, cool. So welcome. I'm recording, and we're doing an audio call because we are. So first off, this has never happened to me before, where I've done a podcast with someone that I've not met, because I don't think we have met in person. Right?
No, not yet.
Who's just recorded for a song that I'm about to release.
The wonders of technology.
Yeah, so thank you. How do you know Monica?
I know Monica through Vito.
Oh, okay.
I had produced Vito's last album, or his first album.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I met Vito through somebody had referred him to us when Kimberly Haynes and I were going on tour in the Arizona area. And Vito and I and Kim hit it off immediately, and we did like 3 or 4 gigs in Arizona. And it was very funny because she would introduce, over on my left, here's Vito. On my right, here's Vito.
Yep.
And Vito came out from Arizona a number of times working on his album. And during that time, he also constructed this beautiful sound booth that I have here that was his custom creation.
Oh, neat.
And if I had video, I could show it to you. But sadly, that's going on a list of things to troubleshoot on this brand new computer, along with many, many other things.
That's so cool. So you're in California, right?
Los Angeles, yeah.
Yeah, Los Angeles. Okay, because I was speaking with Kimberly a few weeks ago. I actually just scheduled her podcast to release this week.
Cool.
And she was telling me that you lived near each other.
Yeah, we're like literally 5 minutes away from each other, which works out really nicely.
Oh my God, it's hailing here.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Wow. How cool.
Yeah, I bet it's not hailing there.
No, but we are having our first actual day that seems like fall. I think it's,
nice. Depends on how you
maybe
feel
actually,
fall.
I love fall. I am not a big fan of typical summer weather. It's 66 right now. We're gonna have a high of 73, which is unheard of compared to what we've had for the whole, big long ugly summer.
Yeah, there was quite a heat wave there. My dad lives in LA.
Oh yeah, it was, and I think Woodland Hills, it was like 120 at one point. So.
Whoa, what? I don't think I heard that. That's nuts. I used to live in Phoenix, and it would be consistently 115-ish.
Yeah, I
like 105 to 115.
I don't really understand how people can enjoy that kind of weather, which is probably why they all
Who
have.
says anyone's enjoying it?
Which is why they all have air conditioning. My one trip to Phoenix, I went there for a gig a number of years ago, and it was hot, dusty, and the air conditioners were on full, and I'm going, isn't that kind of like, take out the fun of living in the desert when you pretend you're not? Let's pretend it's the East Coast. Like everybody here in California has these big, luxurious, long lawns that are, chew up a lot of water, as if we're in, Nantucket or something. Anyway, we digress.
It's all on point. One of the things I think is really cool about talking to people, especially if they're like you, if they're willing to be, goofy, is just to kind of hear what people are like, because when you hear somebody record or you hear their music, you don't necessarily get kind of a feel for what they're like. So I love that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is interesting because text, outside of a few emoticons, really doesn't give away a lot.
Yeah, that's true. That's for sure. Well, and I just felt like other people would be interested in that. I would have conversations with people, at festivals or concerts, or whatever, and I was just thought like, wow, these are like the best conversations that you have with other musicians, when you're just waiting for your set to come, and nobody ever gets to hear this. They just hear the definitions of the mantras when you get
A number of years ago, I did a radio show for One World Music, and they're out of the UK, but really out of Cyprus. Don't tell anybody.
I think I've heard of that.
And really, really nice people. And I did a little podcast for them, and it was really interesting because I kind of dragged in my friend who's does a radio show for. I'm blanking out of the call letters, but it's out of St. Louis, Kansas City rather. Her name's Renee Blanche. She does a great radio show out of there. And if I could remember the name, I would probably be really better at describing this. Anyway, she does a show where she doesn't talk much, just introduces the song and some great new age music, occasionally some mantra stuff. So she really doesn't.
I'm just looking at it. It's KCUR 89.
KCUR, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, and her show is, I'll look it up on, I'll just look it up while we're talking. Anyway.
Maintaining the Calm.
That's always no, but that's a great title. It is KCUR 89.3, and it's
Night Tides.
Night Tides, that's it.
Okay.
Right on. Anyway, she's a really wonderful person, and because she doesn't get to really talk or ask questions of people, she's just introducing a couple of songs. When I got her in on this radio show, we would interview people on the show, other new age artists predominantly, and get to talk about things. And she would ask the questions that I think fans are curious about. I'm going to ask more musician-like questions, but it was really nice to bounce off her in that way, because you get to know.
That's such a good point. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So kind of what we're doing now, which is like talk about stuff, because you don't really get much when you listen to a 22-minute chill piece or a 40-minute kirtan.
So what sorts of things did you find, like, did she ask that you were like, oh yeah, fans would be interested in that? I wouldn't have thought of that.
Well, how things come together is one of them. How did you create that? For instance, Monica sent me your track and gave me some instruction, and I played something and sent it back to her, and then she goes, well, can you do it a little more fuchsia? Fuchsia? Can you take out the the burgundy out of the track? I'm making a joke about it, but
well, no, because I know Monica is very specific about what she wants.
Which is excellent, because there's three types of people that you work with. People who know exactly what they want, which is great. I tend to be that person. And people who are very receptive to having things take a left, right, up or down turn.
That's kind of like me.
And then there's people who don't know what they want, but they know they don't like what you're doing. And can't possibly tell you what it is you should be doing. And those are the most frustrating. A or B are very easy to work with.
Yeah, that's funny. What would we call that? That would be like the self-assured, the receptive, and the critical.
Oh no, I would say the last one is the obtuse.
Obtuse.
The person who really doesn't have a grasp on the big picture. But they just know it kind of makes them, not feel excited or settled, but they have no idea what it is. And you listen to composers talk about working with certain directors on a project, and they'll do this brilliant piece of music, and the director will go, I don't know, it's just not right.
Yeah, but they don't know how to fix it.
And they don't know how to fix. They don't know what to tell the composer. They don't know how to direct them, and they'll say something that's obviously not the right answer, and it'll just confuse the composer more. Such as that. And I feel
like that's kind of how I am with percussionists. I don't know how to tell a percussionist what I want, except that I know that that's not it.
Keep trying, yeah.
Because I just don't know anything about percussion. Do you do percussion?
Yeah, I have experience with almost every instrument, I think, except for violin.
Oh, okay, wow.
So I started out as a drummer, and then I switched to bass, and then I switched to guitar, and then along the way picked up piano, flute, and then, sitar, whatever I can get my hands on, basically.
do they kind of speak to you? Like, do you get kind of a feel for them? Is it sort of like a symbiotic thing where you hold it or do you have to kind of study to learn how to do it?
It varies, certain instruments. I think once you play, more than 2 instruments, you begin to see that the musicality is all the same. It's a matter of finding out how to switch it on, how to switch it off, and how to make it move. It's like driving a car.
Mm-hmm.
You know how to drive a car, but if you got into a truck, okay, well, it's a little bit different. There's this gear shift, and then there's second gear shift, and there's this other brake, and then you get into a boat, and it's like, okay, well, they're out. Okay, where's the accelerator? Okay, there's a wheel. I know how to turn the wheel. And then you adapt. The wheel may turn, vociferously, or it may turn with great effort. You have to really pull it. And so each instrument, you're kind of looking at it in the same way. You're going, okay, what does it take to make it go? How do I make it turn? How do I make it stop? It's just like driving in a vehicle. You know how to make the music. And then you get into the stylistic things where, if you listen to a certain style long enough, you know what it's supposed to sound like. So if I'm playing a dumbek and I'm playing it and making it sound like a congo, I'm doing it wrong. But if you add these little grace notes, you can hear it in your head, and you just try to make the sound with your hands. The difference between me and a real dumbek player is there's no distance between the thought of the sound and making the sound. I have to think about it. I'm going, okay, what would it take to get that? What's the pattern really? So something like that.
Oh, sorry, my son just entered. Hold on 1 second.
No problem.
Well, tell me about making Prem Vidu's last album. I'm curious.
Oh, that was such a great
built a sound booth.
Such a great time doing that. When we started, I was living in Glendale in a house up in the hills, fairly remote, and it was beautiful, and there were birds and trees, and I actually saw an eagle once, which was really cool. And but there was no soundproofing in there, and so I constantly had problems with when the neighbors had their lawns mowed and blowed, or various other things that would cause disruptions. And then I decided, I found out there was a space available in this house in Topanga near Kimberly, and I've always wanted to move here. So I took the place, and it had this big kind of basement-y thing. It's more like a patio that was covered to make it a livable space. So it's very open to the backyard and stuff. It's really quite beautiful, but it's just kind of this big one room with this marble floor in it. And it just reminded me, because I'm hearing it right now. But the pipes from upstairs go along one of the walls. So every time anybody runs any water or flushes the toilet, you hear this big sound. And I'm underneath the patio upstairs where the other tenants live, and they have 3 kids and a dog. And so you're always hearing clump, 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 the sound of elephants, as I call it. So it was like a parent, I was going to have to do something. And I started out with my brother-in-law helping me make this kind of blankets and fiberglass temp booth. That didn't work out very well. And so Vito was coming out, and one of his many skills is as a skilled carpenter.
Of course.
And so I said, what do you think about this? My brother-in-law drew up this drawing. Can we make this? He goes, yeah, actually. So while he was here on a number of trips, he gradually built it up and changed the design to make it more effective. And he made it really beautiful. We put one of these beautiful tapestry mandalas on the front of it, and he put a window in it. And I swear it changed my life. Because anytime I want to make music, I set up a computer monitor inside. I walk in there, flip a switch, and I'm going within 30 seconds. Whereas before, it was just, a major ordeal to try to get to making a quiet recording. But now it's like, go in there, lay a guitar track, lay a vocal track, drum track, whatever I want to do. I am completely isolated. And it's a beautiful thing. So that's part of him making his CD. But he came, to get more back to the question, he came over and he said, I have these songs. They're very dear to me. They're all to the Mother, Ma, Holy Divine Mother. And I really want to get these down. And so he played them for me. And we talked about where they wanted to go and what kind of texture and stuff. I mean, sometimes we did a rough track. Sometimes he played live while I played guitar, and we worked on it. And we gradually got a character for each of the songs, and we'd lay some tracks down. And what was the nice thing about him constructing this is I could work on tracks while he was doing that were going directly into it, like bass and electric guitar and drums. I have a MIDI kit here, so I can do drums without making any noise. And of course, obviously, Vito plays drums. So we would put it all together, or he would do some tracks while he was at home and send them to me. And gradually the songs would take shape. And during this time, he was really working on his voice. He had, I think, an operation on his voice.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
And his recovery process was like an Olympic athlete getting ready to really, so when he showed up here to do his vocals, his voice was in a completely different place. It was sounding beautiful and had so much more control. And we would just, we had a really just great symbiosis of ideas, where he would say, I kind of wanted to do this, okay. I said, well, what about this? Kind of a slightly left turn. You go, oh, well, that's really cool. And so we would kind of just walk with each other as each, depending on which person was leading, kind of like a dance. And the songs gradually took shape, and it was just a lot of fun.
That's so cool. I'm also like, visually, that sounds really fun, because that's not a typical recording situation where you have like your artist doing carpentry while you're
I was literally laying bass tracks with the headphones while I was in there, with the power drill, not 10 feet from me. And I go, hey, come on, listen to this. What do you think of this groove?
That's hilarious.
It was kind of hilarious, and not like any project I've ever worked on. And he really gave me a lot of slack to try things. He was in there doing vocals, and we were talking about doing background vocals, and I just would come up with ideas, and he'd come back with another idea, and it was just a lot of fun being just creative, and not feeling like there was any kind of clamps down or restrictions down on what we were doing.
Yeah.
Garish did a tabla track, and a friend of his, I can't remember his name, did a horn track on one tune, and the rest was just Vito and I.
Wow.
Having a lot of fun. He played guitar on a few of the songs, and I played guitar on the rest of them. He played drums on, I think, all of them. And he brought over some of his drums, and I have some of my drums, and he'd go in the booth and whack away some cool parts. And there's this one song where it's kind of 2 against 3, an African beat, and he has, I think, 3 drums going on, and I've got like 3 guitars that are doing something different. So there's this huge wash of rhythm, and then there's this one kick drum that's driving it on 1, 2, 3, 4, so you know where you are. But that was so much fun to play with.
Oh, cool.
Or play around with, being able to create things around that. So I highly recommend that everybody takes a listen to Friend Vito's album.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun and very devotional. And it's, another thing about it is he totally put his heart into it 100%.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Good.
He has a big heart.
He has a humongous heart.
And you also have music that you have created that
yes, ma'am.
You are the featured artist for.
I am the artiste in those things, yes.
So what
yes,
is that like?
That's
like recording yourself, I guess, first, because I'm assuming you recorded it.
Yeah, I did everything on it. I think I had my first album I did was Yoga Heart Healing, which is an ambient album for yoga, as the title says, and healing, as the title also says, massage and everything. And all the things you'd use chill out music for. And I did it on synth with a little bit of esraj, the Indian instrument with the bow. That's all I used on it. Maybe some, there's a bell rather, my meditation bell that I have. Other than that, it's just all synth. And that was my first record. And, I had been making new age music, I realized, since about 1978. I just didn't know it was called new age then. And for years and years, I didn't think anybody wanted to hear it. I think anybody would pay music. And in 1978, nobody would, a few people knew about Steve Halpern or Suzanne Dissette, all
That's
those
so funny that you mentioned her name, because that was somebody that I had a call with last year, because she does marketing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't heard of her in terms of being a musician though, so because I guess the new age genre for me was just something that I think I sort of tagged along with when I would submit stuff for the Recording Academy for the Grammys, because that's sort of the only genre that one can
and it's a shame
too.
It's a shame there's not two categories, instrumental and vocal. So I think the vocal.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, there also is like the category which is instrumental non-classical.
Yeah, there's contemporary instrumental, which a lot of the Windham Hill people are kind of going into. Is there's a large part of the community that is very uncomfortable with the new age label. I understand that, but as I have been advocated, and every time I get to talk to those people, I say, it's like being the way Reagan made liberal a dirty word. We have to reclaim liberal, and I think we're finally doing that, where liberal is a good thing. Liberal is what brought you Social Security, your unemployment, your fire department, all these things.
Yeah.
In the same way, I think we have to go, new age isn't necessarily airy-fairy stuff. It's also very grounded and very healing. It's, yoga is been embraced by the whole, mainstream media now, and it's no longer just this, flaky thing that people did who were far, 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 far left. So in the same way, new age music, which everybody is using in some way or fashion, it has to stop being looked at as just elevator music, stuff you listen to it at the spa, because there is that, but there's also, 5 or 6 other main subcategories, let alone other more niche categories within the New Age umbrella.
Right, just not in the Recording Academy.
Yeah, well, the Recording Academy is another story. Last year I was on the screening committee for the Style, which basically we listen to stuff and answer the question, is it New Age? And there was like 10 or 12 of us, maybe. Donna DeLore, who's a good friend of mine, was there as well. We were sitting together and we would listen to stuff and go, well, actually it's more jazz or it's more contemporary instrumental. We'd all vote on it. And Suzanne was, I think, the, not the co-chair, but she was obviously the senior member. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, my first release was Yoga Heart Healing. I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything about much of anything other than making the music. And that's how I got into doing that. I started my record label, though, on my first release, which was by Jamya Sakya, who's a Tibetan female lama. She was the wife of the head of the Sakya lineage in the West. And I was fortunate enough to be able to record her and work with her and study under her. And that was my first release. And I only started the record label so that I could have a place to put my music, because in 2000 there was really no place to put your music.
Huh. That's interesting.
Well, it's happened in 20 years.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking, I don't think I've spoken to somebody who has felt really comfortable in like the new age label, because so many of the musicians that I know, like, do mantra or
yeah, the problem with mantra is it doesn't really fall under any category.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, some
it's
of the
stuck.
stuff that people are doing is more like pop too, but it's just has different words. They're just
I'm
not
sure you
English
talked
words.
about this with Kimberly. Kimberly does sacred pop.
No, I didn't actually. We actually talked about her husband a lot, and it was a very sweet podcast. But we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, well, that's a rather big topic.
Yeah.
But her music is sacred pop. It can be anywhere from mantra, Hebrew mantra, Sanskrit mantra, and it could be pop song. The song we're releasing on Friday, October 23rd. I'm not sure when this will air.
It'll be out by then.
It's a R&B song, but it's political.
Okay. Uh-huh.
It's social consciousness song. So she's just released a song, I think last month, called Narrow Bridge, which I'm sure she talked about because it has a lot to do with her husband. And that is new age because it's the big washy synths that I did, but it's also got Hebrew lyrics.
Uh-huh.
It's also got this chant at the end. So, she herself as an artist goes from one end of the spectrum to the other. So how do you categorize her?
Yeah.
She's a singer-songwriter. She's also a sacred singer, So this whole thing about categorizing music is really starting to break down because there's so much cross-pollination.
Mm-hmm.
There's, what's that band? Snark Puppy?
I don't know.
They're kind of a jazz band, but they do kind of a funky, almost alt pop thing. It's just a bunch of different things thrown together, creating this subgenre. But subgenre of what exactly? So my point being is that these old traditional labels are starting to lose their efficacy. They were put together to market music. I want to market this to jazz fans. I want to market this to rock fans. I want to market to classical fans. My third album that I did was a classical album with two violinists, but there was also elements of pop in it. There was elements of new age in it.
I suppose it's just sort of what you can get away with.
Yeah. Well, the trouble is that people still do want to have things marketable. They still want.
That is the trouble.
When you go on Spotify, there are only so many categories. When you go on to Apple Music, I think
when you say there's only so many categories on Spotify, I don't think I've ever searched music by category. That's interesting.
When you try to list something, it's SoundCloud. There is no new age category. It's so everybody's looking at it through their own glasses. Through their own spectrum, and it's very hard to release music. And I'm, as an artist, since you asked me, the second album I did was a Latin guitar album, with some jazz overtones.
Oh, cool.
With some classical overtones. There were a couple classical pieces on there too, because I studied classical guitar at university. My next album after that was Primordial Sonics, which is kind of a world beat groove with, I would say Indian leanings, but with didgeridoo all through it.
Oh, wow. Do you play didgeridoo?
No, that's my good friend Stephen Kent, who's probably the best didgeridoo player in the Western Hemisphere, outside of Australia. If you talk to any didgeridoo player, they know who he is, and they go, "Oh yeah," and they start doing the "we're not worthy" thing, right?
That's it looks like a hard instrument. I've tried.
It's one of those I could not get my head around or my lips around, so to speak. A lot of people do really well with it. It was not resonating with that, but I love the sound of it, and I've done a number of different things with Stephen on. We did something for Malak Anguli with Donna Delori that had didgeridoo in it. We did something on Kimberly's album with didgeridoo. So I'm always trying to work that in somewhere because it's just so cool. It's a great drone instrument. It's right there with the tambura as being one of the ultimate drones.
Do you like recording it? Is it hard to record it to get the actual sound?
Yeah, if you're going to do it right. You can do it with one mic, but the last thing I did with Steven back up at his old studio in Fairfax, we had a mic on the front of it, we had a mic on the side of it, and we had a mic in the room, trying to get the, because it has so many resonant frequencies, it's not something you want to, tightly mic and think that you're getting the whole picture of it.
Right. I love, yeah, I had somebody who played bass for me in Phoenix who also played didgeridoo.
Cool.
I love trying to figure out ways to incorporate that, but he would use it for Shavasana because he taught yoga,
mm-hmm.
And that was cool.
Yeah, it's great. I know a lot of people who will do like they'll walk around the room and they'll blow
Yeah.
in people's chest, and it's like, cool.
Yeah. So are you working on anything currently?
Yeah, I did an album, I think it was 2015, called Homeland, with the guy who won the New Age Grammy the year before, Ricky Kej, who's now ambassador for environmental ambassador through the UN, and he's doing all these great things around the world. And he and I started working on an album just before some of the craziness, post-Grammy craziness came on for him, where he was doing this big eco music project and consequently a number of eco music projects. So we've never finished it, but we kind of revisited it about 2 months ago, and we're going to try to swing back to that. That's as far as a personal album for me. And I'm working on other projects for other people, obviously, a number of things with Kimberly. But the biggest project I'm working on now in terms of like impact will be a project with the Bhagavad Gita. A friend of mine did a translation of the Gita into rhyme scheme, because all the translations into English are very trying to be very accurate and trying to be very
right. Sorry, it's a translation that rhymes, or what it?
Yes. So the original, like all sacred texts of any language, you have a rhyme scheme so that you can remember it, because there were no books.
Oh.
So in order to the oral tradition, things were done as songs and poems.
Rhyme scheme. I like that.
Rhyme scheme. So so she did it that way, sacrificed a little bit in literal translation to get it to be so it could be sung. So she published it. It's called The Song Divine, and it's available at all your usual places. And it's a wonderful translation, being able to look at it in a different way rather than academic translations. There's some really great interpretive translations. I have a copy or two myself, where the person will extemporize on what it's being said and kind of give you a context and everything. Hers deals just in making it something contemporary that we can look at and experience in that same rhyme scheme fashion.
Cool.
And so she called me up and said, I want to put this to music and make a musical out of it. I thought, well, that is a great idea. What the hell? Let's do that. And
amazing sets.
And she knew that I had done Homeland and a number of other projects with Mala Ganguly, and so I was very well versed in Indian music, although I don't consider myself anywhere near an expert, far from it. But I have dipped a toe into it. So we've been working on that for the last 2 years, and we're getting kind of close to finishing it. We went through a number of ideas on who would sing it, at least the initial album version. She wants to get some pretty A-list people to be doing the final product, maybe somebody like John Legend. It's basically, because once you take all the political stuff out of the Gita, it's basically just Krishna talking to Arjuna. So that's kind of a two-person musical. And we've added a few other elements to bring into it, but it's still basically just the teachings of the Gita in that sense. And like I said, most of the political elements have been taken out. So it's been really a lot of fun to do, because stylistically she wanted it to be pop, and not necessarily, because she wants it for Western audiences and for people in India who want to get away from the traditional tambura and tabla,
Yeah.
guitar, whatever thing, and have it be, because India is very much into Western music, as you probably know.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, we should make it a rock musical, not like something you might see on Broadway now, where there's, Les Miserables, where it's very, very Broadway. So, there's the first song sounds a little bit like Steve Winwood. The second song is kind of Elton John. The third song is kind of Hakuna Matata. The next song is kind of like Yes from the 80s. The next song's kind of Pink Floyd. There's a rap song. There's an EDM song. There's a couple of just straight ahead pop songs. There's a reggae tune. The one I'm working on now, what is that one? That's kind of James Brown, I think. So I'm really being able to take all these different styles that I've worked in over my career, pull them together and try to make a cohesive element of it that will, keep people's attention, because as you know, the Gita is 18 chapters, so that's easily a 2.5-hour musical or a double album.
Oh, okay. No, I actually know very little about the Bhagavad Gita, because I mostly know about Sikhism when it comes to
of course, yes.
But
well, you should, when it comes out, you should get a copy.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will be very instructive if I've done it right.
Do you, so she obviously wrote the lyrics, and you're doing the entire thing and everything is a song, or are you picking like?
No, we're doing all 18 chapters, and it's really challenging because some of these have 30, 40 verses in them.
Oh, okay.
Or stanzas. So I have to get really creative how, because normally a pop song is verse, chorus, bridge, chorus.
Sure.
So you basically have 4 stanzas, maybe 5. If you're Bob Dylan, you have maybe 10. So I had to get really sneaky how I did this. And eventually I got her to cut some repetitive stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I wasn't starting with 30, I was starting with 15 and trying to make it into a song.
Huh.
One of the reasons the rap song came about is I was realizing, I was listening to some Tibetan chant, and I realized this is sacred rap.
Huh.
They're doing the same thing. It's rhythmic. It's, got rhyme on the end of it so that you can remember it. It's the same oral tradition. Rap is no different. So I got this idea, well, this particularly long one, I'll just have them rap it so I can get like 4 stanzas in per verse.
Huh.
Do a hooky chorus, and then do another 4. So.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. So when are you? So are you releasing this as an album first, or are you going to be like pitching this to a theater company, or?
Well, theater's dead right now because of COVID. So in a sense, we had this reprieve where we could kind of huddle up and try to finish it up before, life returns to Broadway. In the course of time, she's been talking to some TV people about other possibilities. So I'm not sure exactly where it's going to inevitably end up, but we're going to start out with releasing it as an album and use that as our calling card. As I said, she's trying to get, big name people to do the final vocals, but right now I'm on song 16 of 18. So, I'm on 15. I need to start 16 this week. And she made a trip to India, I think about 6 months ago. Now it's probably about 9 months ago before the lockdown, and got one of the top singers there, Sonu Nigam, to do vocals on one of the songs. And while she was there, she tracked some Bansuri and Sarangi that she brought home for me to work with. Other than that, I've played all the instruments on the record so far. I've had one song I had to get my friend Greg Vizinet, who plays with Ringo Starr and other famous people, to come in and do the drum part, because I composed the song in 9/8 and I didn't know what to do with that. But other than that, it's just been me here, so I can kind of do things quickly once they're finished being written. And the 2 singers right now, it's Deepak Ramapriyan. I always say that wrong. and Alex Perez. And so they have their projects, and we're trying to get their vocals in between what they're doing for their own things. So it's been kind of slow going in that sense, but we're starting to catch up, and I'm hoping to have it done by the end of the year. Have it ready, mixed, and ready to go.
That's really cool.
It's really fun. I can't tell you. And it sounds, I am so proud of this material.
One of the other one of like several podcasts ago, but I was talking with Sangeeta Kaur.
Yeah, she's a good friend.
Yeah, so she did that. She did a mantra musical. I mean, I know it's different than what you're doing, but one of the things that really struck me about what she was talking about was that the performers were, she was saying, were just so grateful to be like vibrating these words, you know, and doing this musical, because it was so different than, you know, acting out a scene from the French Revolution, for example, since you brought up
jazz. Exactly. I mean, actually, I had sent Lisa, the woman who's the head of the project, Lisa Coffey, I sent her some links to Sangeeta's videos from her show, saying, like, check this out, because, you know, this can be done.
Yeah, it's exciting. Cool. So do you have anything else that you want to share before we wrap up?
Let's see. I mentioned Kim's new song. I mentioned the thing that I haven't finished yet. Let's see. I mentioned Vito's project. There's also a singer I just finished an album with who also did some very great music. That's singer-songwriter, but with a positive vibe. I would say not yoga music, but, you know, if yoga were words that you would sing to a friend, this would be it. Her name's Mary Gospe, Gospe. And actually, you should have her on your show at some point.
Yeah, I will check her out. And if people want to find out more about you and stay in touch, how should they do that?
My website is vitogregolimusic.com, and definitely go there, sign up for the newsletter. That happens very infrequently, so your email box will not be filled with.
Cool. And I'll post that link in the podcast notes so people can click on it.
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Cool. Thank you so much for doing this, Vito. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure talking to you. And, you know, like I said, you know, it's good to interact with the people you're working with.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Coming back we're full circle.
I can't wait to hear the song.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't heard the
yeah, I haven't heard the mix yet.
Oh, yeah. Ask her to send it.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.